that you have
Yeah, I'm very much like you in that way where I don't like feeling any of that. And so anytime you felt it, we were just throwing it away.
Mm-hmm.
Like so much of the game was trying to find something real. And what does that mean? What does finding real even mean? And so it would be a group like this.
Mm-hmm.
We would be in story drawing ideas and talking about things that we experienced and trying to capture that. And so most everything in the film comes from a real experience. From the xenophobia, I experienced that in New York. Like when I was growing up, people would go back to your country. And I'm not trying to force anything. That's just something that happened. And how do you feel about that? Is it a scar? Does it need to be healed? What is that? And so it's more about the discussion of it and then trying to allow the characters to evolve of these issues, and everything was put there to support what Ember or Flem was going through. And that just became a mantra for us, of just like, no, we have to filter it all through this character's lens, like how does she feel about, this person being wealthy? How does she feel about her parents having sacrificed? How does she feel about, the city not being made for her? And so it was just constantly filtered.
It's just a lot of trial and error. We have so many screenings. I mean, we're constantly refining the story. I mean, we worked a solid 2 years before we even started any kind of technical or design, just working on the story.
How do you technically test screen and animation? I mean, how does it work? Like, because if somebody says, oh, this whole section is bad, then it takes what, like another year to fix it? And what if it doesn't work out? I mean...
I wish we know it. You have 12 weeks to figure it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's...
Yeah, you're putting on a show every 5 weeks, essentially. You are gathering artists, they're drawing out ideas, we're getting performers, temporary performers, we're putting temporary music, we're getting into the edit, we're carving everything out together, and then putting it on a big screen at work, and trying to experience a rough version of the cinematic immersiveness of it. And you can immediately feel it with an audience of like, ooh, that's not working, oh, I can feel that, oh, that has promise. And so you're just constantly carving with this relationship with the screen, but it's always in this rough state. And what I love about Pixar is that you have a group of filmmakers that are always giving advice. It's not mandatory. It's not like, but you're always trying to understand. Like, oh, I'm talking about xenophobia in a way, for example. But some of the people in the room didn't understand it.
Yeah.
Why didn't they understand it? And so you're just diagnosing and putting up diagnosing all the time, just constantly. It's sort of violent. I have to say. Like and then once something doesn't work, you're tearing it out. And that's a dangerous thing when something's personal, or at least I learned when something's personal, all of a sudden you don't want to tear it out.
Of course.
All of a sudden you're like, no, but that's a killer. That is a killer for a film. Yeah. And you're like, how dare you? That hurt so much. But at the same time, it's necessary for the
I think we tallied like 40 screenings. Like we have like rough assemblies, where we just watch it, or we bring in our executive producer, and there's all these different, or to fix something, and our one of our assistant editors said we put the movie up 40 times, which is a lot.
But you would think it'd be perfect by then. But
I know it's not.
It's just
it's
an
true.
evolution.
Yeah.
You've both been at Pixar for many years, and I just wondered how would you describe the philosophy of Pixar, and perhaps also how it has changed or evolved in the time you've been there, if it has?
I think at the core of it, I mean, it is a studio that believes in telling personal stories, as the impetus for the projects, which I think is important for authenticity. I mean, what I'm excited about is I do think there's more variety of people, bigger variety of people telling stories, which is really exciting. More women, just more people from varied backgrounds. So I think that's the biggest change. I don't know what you think.
No, I agree. I think that's definitely where we're going. And but at the heart of all of this, you're trying to create characters that resonate, that have a heart to it, or have joy to them, that you can bring you into the cinema in a new way, or in a way that really allows you to open up and have growth. Like, all of this is about resonance, really, right? About trying to connect. Like any good piece of music, you're just wanting to connect. As I talk to you guys, I'm looking you guys in the eyes and just wanting to connect. It's the same business, and that it's a difficult thing, but it's a drug. It's a drug that you chase for sure.
Well, and the other important component is like why animation? You know what I mean? Like that was the thing that I really loved about this movie. Only in animation could you make it. Really, you know, it's the fantastical world, and I love that. You know, and I think that's important as the studio's philosophy.
Yeah.
You know.
What was your cultural influence for create the fire element? Is it something from India or something like that? Maybe the music, maybe.
Yeah, we took from a lot of places. You know, what was interesting was we learned very early on that I didn't want to appropriate from any one culture. You want to make sure that each element feels like something that you know, but not quite. You know, and we definitely were inspired by our Indian community. Asian community, African, European, like there were so many pieces. You know, there's a joke where Cinder, the mother character, brings us a shirt that says like, "Kiss me, I'm Firish," which is an Irish joke. And so there was just always a disruption from a different culture. Even with the music, you know, there are Indian instruments that are being used, but they're also like African. And so it's constantly trying to mix it so that you can feel it, that it's from something that you don't know, but that you do know. There were times where we tried something that was even further away, and it became alien, and you didn't connect anymore. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, I don't know what this is. And so it was just this constant trial and error of trying to find that balance. You know.
You've talked about the feedback and the discussions, and I wonder whether there are any particular things that you've heard, not necessarily working on this project, but like someone come up to you and be like, you know, I think 15 years ago that would be truly impossible and look like where we are now. I want like both in terms of technology and being able to achieve things that were primarily like unshowable or whatever, but also in terms of content, like message or like things that you would not think about or would not dare to show.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah, I mean, there was a version of this film that was about a war between a father and a daughter. You know, there was a version that went into arson. There was a version where the film went into a whole city hating fire, and there was no one that was ever saying you can't do that. But there were people that were saying that I don't know how to connect to this. And so when you hear that, look, I went through some very personal things through this film. My parents both died during the making of this thing, and I went through a lot. I didn't realize how much I was going through, but like any piece of thing that you're making, whatever you're going through just gets in there. And so there was a darkness all of a sudden from loss that just folded in there, but no one was saying like, take that out. It was just like, I don't understand where this is. And so they asked you like, is this what you intended? Like, no, I wanted to make something hopeful and something about this. And then it made me rethink of why I was doing certain things. So that aspect of it can be, it's like therapy.
But I love what you're saying because I mean my older son, I mean the one that's already
among us.
He's 6.5. I think we're probably gonna try and watch it together.
Yeah.
And I love when films are able to portray darkness, but in this sort of non-threatening way, because I feel like there's so much darkness, and if like we were just almost robbed yesterday on the street here, how do you explain that?
Wow.
Like, why did this lady try to take your things? You know, these things happen. Doesn't have like to be death necessarily, but like every day there is something. So I really love when films are able to somehow sculpt that and like deliver in a approachable way. Yeah. So that's actually very important. That things for kids are not just bright and shiny anymore. Yeah.
They should be truthful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we hoped at the end of the day that people like maybe you call up your parents and thank them. We always said that, but that would be a nice kind of outcome. And then if you can just a little bit more tolerance in our world, it'd be a nice thing.
I was thinking about what we were saying, and of course the film is for kids, but also for adults. So I was trying to know how we are going to be connected because we are two different levels.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
that's an important philosophy for our studio too, I would say.
Yeah, and it's generally like I love movies like that. Growing up and watching something that my parents didn't connect, or they were watching something that I didn't connect to, was always an interesting thing because they come from a different culture. Yeah. But there were movies that were universal for both of us. Like I remember seeing Back to the Future with my parents, and for some reason as a kid, I could understand the fun of meeting someone like your parents at your age, but my mother could understand the same thing. And that connection between that, like I couldn't talk to my parents about a lot of things, but through some of these movies, there was communication that opened up. And I think that love helps me with the making a film at Pixar, because you just want to create something universal. Why? So that you can connect. Again, trying to find that emotional resonance.
You were talking about animation before and why animation, but why you like animation. I wonder if you could both talk a little bit more about that. I read somewhere that you started out also doing, you worked on the Iron Giant
Yes.
back in the day, which is a fantastic hand-drawn animation film, and now you're doing computer animation.
Yeah.
What is it about animation? Is it bringing inanimate objects to life?
Yeah.
Is it that simple, or is it more than that?
It definitely is the start. The idea of bringing something to life is that first step into it that clicks in and that gives you that high of like, oh my goodness, like all these drawings, something's alive, and there's just this lizard brain sort of like magic trick that gets you going. As you start to deepen into it, the idea of communicating through that becomes the next drug. And what level of communication can you do with this? The word caricature and appeal is used a lot, but when you really try to caricature something and boil something down to its essence, it can be so beautiful, it can be so poetic, and it can transcend animation or film. It just all of a sudden like, oh, there's a real truth to that you boiled it all down through this analog work. And 2D and CG, even though they're two different mediums, it's the same thing. It's the same hunt of trying to communicate through something that is magical.
I really love the process too. I mean, in addition, I love the fact that you're creating like these kind of fantastical worlds, but I love the production. I love working. I like the art and the combination of the art and technology is super satisfying. We work with amazing people that are just so smart, and that is something that I started off doing, film visual effects, and I just love the fact that we were creating everything. And I was on Revenge of the Sith, and like, this is basically an animated movie, and so why not do the whole thing, and that was why I moved to animation, to be involved with the storytelling. So it's fun. Yeah, I love it. Like, we're always sad when the movies end because it will be a while before we do shot production again. I miss that. I miss working with crews.
One more question, please.
We are seeing a lot of this movie with blue screen, green screen, and animated movie in a way. Do you think there is more truth today in animation, strict animation, than in a Star Wars, or I don't know? Sometimes it's difficult for me to connect with this big production.
Yes, I mean, I think it's very similar to the big live-action productions when something is a commercial endeavor or when something's searching for truth. And what's so funny is that at Pixar, you're trying to do both. Some are more successful than others, but I think just with the breadth of animation today, there's so much more being made than ever before, and so there's just a lot more gateways to connect and find truths, and the art form, when it is at its best, is when it can connect that way, and there's more of it happening, and so just the law of ratio just means that there's more connection going on.
Great. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening tomorrow.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're very excited about that. Yeah, it's amazing.
I know, we're very nervous.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a picture?
Thank you.
Oh, that's so nice.
Thank you very much.
So you take care.
You have a nice. If you stay here, we've got one more round table.
Can you
Okay, sure.
please take us a picture?
I'm going to sit here and see if there's
Yes.
Do you want to get
Peter, yes.
Oh, yes, yes.
Why don't you get one?
Great, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much and good luck.
It was great talking to you. Thank you so
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Take care of yourself.
Yes, I saw you like this.
5 weeks.
5 weeks, 5 more weeks.
Five or